Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Chrysler. Each episode, we talk to business owners and leaders to learn about their story, their business, the challenges they've overcome, and the challenges they still face. You'll hear fresh insights, real talk, and get inspiration to grow your business. Hey, everybody. So excited to be welcoming Greg Mischio to the podcast today. Greg is the owner and founder of Winbound, a marketing agency that provides content marketing for small marketing departments with a focus on manufacturing and industrial verticals. Winbound provides a content and marketing approach, creating content that's mapped to the customer journey and providing marketing for distribution via search, social, and niche-based paid advertising. Winbound's clients have enjoyed double and triple digit increases in traffic and leads. Greg, thanks so much for taking your time to join us on the Everyday Business Problems podcast today.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get into this with you. We are talking today about digital twins. And this is a term that I've heard in the manufacturing industry before, but not necessarily as it relates to marketing. So maybe you can just kind of talk me through exactly what you mean when you're using the term digital twin.
So I hijacked the term well over a year ago. We've been doing manufacturing marketing for many years, but we really wanted to enhance our branding and get the word out and make it easier for manufacturers and industrial clients to understand digital marketing. We work with sales and marketing departments, and manufacturing is predominantly sales driven. So everyone is really sales oriented in the business, especially when you get into these companies with small marketing or small sales teams. So there's a lot with digital marketing that confuses people, makes people uneasy. And so what we wanted to do was kind of meet them halfway and speak in their language. So I was at a manufacturing happy hour hosted by Chris Lukey, our friend Chris, and they had someone talking about digital twins. And a digital twin for manufacturers is a digital recreation of a product or a process, basically. And as they were describing it, and the expert was talking about it, it occurred to me that everything we're trying to do from a content marketing perspective basically mirrors what salespeople are doing on a face-to-face and offline perspective. So I thought, well, what we could say and what we should do to try and meet the customer halfway is say we're using online content to create a digital twin of your salesperson. So that's the context, and that's how we explain it. And since we've kind of rolled out that framework, it's been very amazing. You know, initially it was just like a thought that came to me, but as we actually applied it to our marketing approach and our formula, it was amazing how well it stood up, and actually it added dimension and multiple applications to different parts of the approach. So, for example, when we talk about content that we need to produce, we talk about 3 types of content, and it mirrored what salespeople do to try and get new customers. So the old mantra in sales is people won't do business with you unless they know you, they like you, and they trust you. Well, in the digital twin world, and in content marketing, you want to create content that basically follows the same process. You want to create like you content that's really like introductory content, getting people, know you content, top of the funnel, know you content. This is content that for people who don't know you at all, that you used to get on their radar. And what better way to get on somebody's radar and get them to know you and to start talking about their problems. So it's really top of the funnel content, talking about the problems, issues that affect them. And then the next step would be to create like you content. So in the sales process, you want to get people to like you. Well, what's the best way to get people to like you? Do them a favor, help them in some way. So the like you content would be publishing tools that help them do their job better. Maybe a online calculator or an informational guide or a comparison chart, anything a little more value added than that just top of funnel content. And then the trust you content is really like your case studies, data on your buying pages that show that you can deliver the goods, and quantitative numeric proof that you've delivered on what you're saying you're doing. So that's just one example of how it's played out, the digital twin approach. And then we've also seen it even just when we start doing on onboarding with clients. We'll start talking to them about, what does your customer need? What questions, what problems do they have? And we start talking to them, getting their feedback, getting management's feedback on, what are the issues that are affecting you? And we'll ask people in the organization. That's the first step, is to in creating the digital twin content. But then what we do is we go and we talk to the customers and we ask them, what are your problems? So we'll talk to maybe like 3 customers, get some of their feedback. What are your issues? What's really bothering you? And this digital twin of content actually sits right between, just like it does in the manufacturing world, it sits right between the customer, the salespeople, the management, and the actual end user, the end customer. And we informs, the digital twin is informed both ways. So we start by getting the feedback from your sales team, the management team, create that content. And then we hear from the customer. We hear from them directly. We use advertisement, we use SEO to see how they react. And if there's certain things that they react to more than others, we'll change that digital twin, we'll change that content, and then speak back to the sales team. So that's another example of how it just keeps evolving in terms of depth into more than just like this, catchy slogan, but it's really it's played out throughout the approach.
Yeah, it's really interesting how you laid that out. So I appreciate you going into depth there, because one of the things that jumps into my mind when I hear digital twin in more of a traditional sense is that testing, right? The ability to kind of test and mirror and, take feedback and kind of continually improve on the particular thing that is being cloned, if you will. So I'm glad that you guys have similarly used that approach in your process. Talk a little bit more about that integration piece. So as you start going through these different iterations of getting the feedback kind of on both ends, and it starts coming back inbound, if you will, what's the process look like to take that feedback and then work with the sales team, or maybe, if it's inside sales customer service team? What does that look like? Have you guys seen examples where your digital twin content has then come back and impacted some of the processes and or systems that the actual sales team has used because you've received that type of feedback?
I can't give you any specific examples other than in terms of numerics, in terms of changing the sales process. I think it's really right now it's heavily language based in terms of what do you lead with in terms of your sales team. So here's an example of how it would play out and how it works. So we were just talking, we're just redoing the home pages for a few clients, and started out with the value proposition on top. At the the top of the home page, what do you do? What's your differentiator? And then as we get further down the page, what we've from our initial conversations and our onboarding, we kind of take the Mike Weinberg sales story approach, where we find out what the problems are and then what your differentiators are, and we marry those two together. So as you're scrolling down the page, you'll see what are some of the problems and then how we're solving them. So we're going to be, well, like right now we're running a paid campaign for a client who just did that, and we're going to be testing those propositions out there and seeing how people react and click through. And what we want to do then is inform the sales team. Listen, this is what people are actually reacting to online. This is, they are following through on this without you guiding them in any certain way. So let's revise your sales pitch and see if you're more effective this way. It's all based on, there's a fellow named Grant Gooding from Proof Positioning, market researcher, phenomenal market researcher out of Kansas City. He's used this process. It's called emotional data. And we're kind of taking a version of it, a Winbound version of it, if you will. But really what he's done is talk to the sales team, get a list of why people do business with you, and then rolled it out to the customer and see how they react, and then tell the sales team. And they've seen some pretty significant increases in sales simply by going through that testing process. I mean, I don't think there's many sales team out there, especially at the level we're talking about, a smaller organization, who does any kind of testing, integrating marketing and sales to find that kind of feedback, that loop, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge, especially for some of the smaller manufacturers out there. Typically, they don't have an entire team that's dedicated, to this. So it's kind of, multiple people wearing multiple hats. So I
Right.
think that's part of the challenge. And the other challenge, I think, I'd love to get your take on this, but my experience has kind of said that, often they don't necessarily have a roadmap, if you will, in terms of how to go about testing it in a manner that provides feedback so that they can do something with it. It's kind of more of that scattered approach, if you will, where, on the surface level, maybe it looks like we're doing some testing, but we don't have a real, thought out plan to execute against and then take that data and kind of go through that iterative process. What's your experience been with that?
I, I think it's tough because the whole marketing planning, the roadmap, how we're going to get from A to B. I mean, we definitely have a framework. We have tactics that we use. But to me, the real key, and one that people just maybe overlook, is maybe less a roadmap and more of a true north, a point that you're going to focus on, and that's your goal. And to me, it's the customer. If you can use and get customer data and get customer feedback and know what they want and build your brand around the customer and respond to the customer like the digital twin kind of format allows you to do, that's going to dictate that roadmap and what you do. I mean, I think we make it way too complicated with all these marketing and sales strategies and tactics. It's like, hey, what do people want? Let's give them what they need, right? I mean,
Right.
let's keep it simple. I'm a simple guy. I get very confused by complicated things. So this is the approach I like to take. What does the customer want? And the other thing that we've done, I put a post out on this on LinkedIn, and people responded quite well to it, I think, and embraced it. The idea of the roadmap, how are we going to do things? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, we have a plan, we have a framework, we have a system that we use. But the one thing that we want to try and do is get everybody on the same page, right? David, you might have an idea what this customer wants, what you think they want. I might have a different one in terms of like, what's our slogan going to be? Um, we need to put our egos aside. We need to really just focus on the customer. So I brought up this analogy again of, a company is a lot like a family. There's a lot of different personalities in it. We're all bound by our paycheck. We have to get along or we don't get paid. So, we have a bond like that. And there's some people who are in your company that you don't like, but you have to see them every day, kind of like you have to see them at the holidays, right? But what what brings people together? What brings a family together? And the one thing that I really think does, um, other than a natural disaster, would be a baby. When somebody brings a baby home, it's amazing how everybody in the family rallies around the baby. The grandparents shower the baby with gifts. The surly uncle wants to hold the baby and has questions, and suddenly you're all communicating. So I say, make the customer your baby. Um, make the customer your baby. Let everybody rally around the customer, and then focus on making the baby happy. And I think when that happens, you get unity, you get shared purpose, and a lot of those, the ego goes behind you, as long as you're trying all focus on one common goal.
Yeah, I like that analogy. I haven't heard that one before, but I think it's very appropriate. And, it kind of sets us up because in my notes, I really wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that customer journey aspect of this. So it's a good segue. So thank you for that. But, I really, if from your process standpoint, to look at how do we keep the customer in mind so that we are kind of celebrating what their journey is, and how do we take that and roll that in with your strategy of this digital twin? How do those kind of two things connect for each other, and how do you present that to the companies that you're working with?
I think it's just a conscious step on your part, just to always be thinking about the customer. Um, we talk with our writers about it every day. If they're struggling with a blog post, for example, or piece of content, don't make it so hard. What does the customer want? Think about that. Don't think about what the client wants. Like, it's really easy to try and think about what the boss wants, try to appease the boss. And don't get me wrong, at some point you're probably going to have to do that if they don't think the customer is the baby. Probably not going to have a good company, for very long. And I mean, that's not sustainable, especially in today's day and age. So, really just to always keep the customer top of mind. And, I think it's also a nice way for you to avoid your own opinions and confrontation. Um, if someone's got something that you disagree with, and, don't answer them with your own opinion, and I think this, answer them with a question. Well, do you think the customer would want to do it that way? And why do you think that? And see if they have an answer, throw it out there. That doesn't put you, then you're not, you're not in the hot seat. You're not opinionated. You're just trying to get them to think through things like you're thinking through. And, I'm looking back at the customer research, and David, this is what they said they want. Your idea, I'm not sure if that aligns with that. Tell me how you think it does. So, just a kind of that constant, returning to the customer, mindset can help you quite a bit.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I had on the show previously, Lori Hybe, and it reminds me of one of the things that she had brought up about customer journey, and just the fact of what you're saying. I think too often we can make assumptions, and it's easy to do because, back to your point, whether you're working on, a piece of content and you want to make sure that, well, the client, we want to make sure that the client is happy, but if the client has a different perception of reality maybe than, let's say, the actual customer, end user, you can really be setting yourself up for failure because, again, you're missing that connection point. And yes, in your situation, the client is the one that is, paying the bills for you to help them create the content. But it's really no different than my role, right? Our responsibility is really to help guide people. So ultimately, their end user is the one that is, kind of being celebrated and make sure that they're getting what they need and in the easiest form and fashion. So, yeah, it makes sense. So talk to me a little bit, Greg, about manufacturing. We talked a little bit about manufacturing profiles and how does that fit into what you guys are doing with the digital twin strategy? Is that more of a kind of a macro approach that you're taking? Is that kind of one of the early steps, or how does that all fit in with what you guys are doing?
In terms of niching and really focusing on manufacturing industrial clients.
Yeah.
I think really, we're just trying to eat our own dog food, and we're really trying to focus in on our customers. I mean, we look at the target market and, different industrials. When we started out, we were, this approach can work with anybody, B2B, B2C to a degree. But we really wanted to become experts and really understand our customer more. Well, that was pretty difficult to do when you're kind of scattered over a wide range of customers. So we really decided to focus in on manufacturing in terms of really digging in deep and understanding, there's engineers, designers, those are one of the main buyers. Procurement is the other main buyers. Those seem to be the twin towers, the big two, in terms of customers that manufacturers need. And of course, CEOs, the management, they obviously play a huge part in that as well. But really understanding what makes those individuals tick, and then understanding what manufacturers are going through, the complexity of their products, the long buying cycles. We've a lot of that is understanding that then just informs your approach and makes you, like when we'll go in and talk to a new customer, we'll talk about content for those engineers and those designers, but really, can we take the same piece of content and then flip it and really tweak it and tailor it to the procurement specialist? So, for example, we were working with one manufacturer, and we started to talk about not just the equipment, but how do you purchase the equipment? Do you need to be aware of Section 179? Do you need to understand the R&D tax credit? What's the true total cost of ownership? How do you calculate that? What are all the factors that are involved with that? So really understanding those personas, you don't get that depth until you niche in a customer. And I think too, with a lot of these smaller manufacturers, it starts to inform how we do our distribution and our marketing of the content. We need to be niched and focused with that content that we're producing. Otherwise, you're all things to all people. It's harder to make your advertising dollars more effective if you're really just trying to advertise to a broad level of customers. So that, just knowing our customer is just helping us define who we're marketing to, just like we advise them with their marketing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you then taking, so I have a couple of questions based on that. Are you then taking that same approach? So when you get a client coming to you, are you helping them to go through and kind of categorize and put profiles together to better define who they're ultimately serving, and kind of using that same technique with what you just described in there?
Absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
It's tough for some clients because, they might have a foot in this over here and a foot, in this market. And I get all that. But there's nothing wrong. Like if you're a sales driven company and you have been forever, why not, with your limited marketing dollars, why don't you focus on your most profitable niche? Why don't you put your advertising and your content dollars there? If those salespeople have made, money out of just by cold calling, let them go there, build and expand your niche here with your marketing, focus on that as maybe you'll expand that. I mean, I'm sure most of these sectors you could add in, you could add in 100 salespeople and you still probably wouldn't dominate it.
Yeah.
So you can at least, whether that's the case, or even if you can just get market saturation in one niche, once you've got that, then you can expand to other niches. So yeah, I mean, we definitely try and focus people that way and guide them that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. My other question, as it kind of relates to what you're just talking about, you started off talking about how you guys are utilizing it internally to identify, kind of niche down and identify internally the different, the different departments or different people that are responsible that ultimately kind of touch the sales and marketing side of things. Are you then taking that content as you guys create it to help distribute from a personal branding perspective, or are you still trying to take and focus that around, kind of relating it back to that customer journey? Because I think that could be a little bit confusing for people. So I'm just curious what your guys' approach is, because I think done one way or the other, I think you could be pretty successful with it. I'm just curious to see what your guys' approach to that is.
So are we taking kind of that digital approach and getting down to a personal branding level? Um, I guess I would use the example of LinkedIn, and I would say, no, we're probably not. And the reason why is um, I can't brand you, David. You're already branded. You already have your personality. Already have the way you deliver. You already have the way you do things. And when you get on LinkedIn, the one thing I've learned is it's most important to be yourself and be authentic and create content along those lines. So, if you're a salesperson, if you're a guy like Dan Bigger, who's a great manufacturing sales rep, he's on LinkedIn. He does a ton of commenting. I would say he creates more comments than he does content. And he admits it. He's like, I'm not a writer, but boy, is he a responsive guy. And
Yeah.
he actually is a better writer than he admits, but he's commenting on a lot of things. That's how he interacts, and he shows his personality and who he is. And he's all over the place, and he hustles and he works super hard. Um, I think the what we create from a digital twin perspective can be shared as kind of a support. So David, you answer the question in your own style, how you like to deliver it. Maybe you're doing a little video recording, but really you're working off of the script that we've written and helped you develop, and giving you the cogent points that you need. And then you're using your voice. We like to say we write the script, and then you make the movie. I think that's the best way, how it can trickle down into the personal branding. I mean, we're going to keep you on message. I'd love, anybody who's working for Winbound to talk about the digital twin. It's there. I mean, the system has been built. The framework
Yeah.
is there. You tell it how you want. Just follow the script pretty much. But I want to see your personality come out in your personal branding.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a great approach because, it's not about, to your point, it's not about making you be somebody that you're not, but you want to also illustrate or, have similar bullet points regardless of what necessarily the exact delivery of them are. So I like that you guys are taking those assets and making them available kind of across the organization. And I think that's something, at least in my experience, specific to manufacturing. People are maybe more from a leadership and ownership standpoint, people have been a bit slower to adopt. So it's nice to see that more ownership and leadership are starting to kind of take those cues from people like yourself. And now that you have those assets available and there's a little bit more cohesiveness around it, you can still let other people's direct personality kind of shine, but you're still keeping that message, out there and rolling. So I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think too on LinkedIn, for example, look at it. You look at LinkedIn as a method to make referrals. Look at it as a way to expand your network and build relationships. Forget about the marketing aspect of it. I mean, we'll definitely create content that you can put out there and be great if we can get visits to come back to the website. But really, if you're posting on LinkedIn organically, that means just creating your own posts. Chances are LinkedIn is not really going to share your link and get you back to your website. They want to keep you in their ecosystem. They don't want you to click away. You're better off just building your own personal brand and sharing your knowledge so you get referrals and you build your network. And maybe you can feature some people that you meet in your company content. Like you're featuring me right now, David. I mean, you met me on LinkedIn, and here you go. And you're sharing what I know with your audience and building value for them, hopefully by just sharing your network. I mean, what you're doing is spot on in terms of today's marketer, and executives should take note of what you're doing. You're putting yourself out there, you're expanding what you know, and adding value all the way around.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think, in the manufacturing space, a lot of people in that world or in that sphere kind of grew up in what I classify as the old school approach to business. And I think there's starting to be a shift for a lot of people. And I think a lot of the things you just brought up and what we see across all the social platforms is a bit different. So I think it does take some getting used to, if you will. And oftentimes, unless you're really comfortable as maybe an owner or a leader, you might not be the one necessarily leading the charge of wanting to do that. But I think that you and your services, what you guys are doing is helping to pave the way. It's making it easier and more approachable for people. And then you can have these, kind of much more open conversations about the real benefits of it. And you threw out there, like you mentioned with Dan Bigger, right? I mean, that's a perfect example of somebody who's in the space and utilizing all of these techniques, really to the benefit of ultimately his company. But people buy from people. So, you've got to be able to build those relationships, and assuming that you as an owner or leader of a manufacturing business maintains a good relationship with your sales team, you're going to be the benefit of that. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
David, are you starting to lose me here? Can you see me? Because I'm facing the window. This is natural light and the sun is going down.
I see that you are getting a little bit dark, Greg, but we are in for the home stretch here. So okay. I will just ask you if you've got any kind of final thoughts to share with our audience as it relates to this digital twin initiative, or anything really on the manufacturing marketing side of things.
I think it seems daunting, but really, there was a report by Gartner that I think, what was it, up to 80 to 85% of the sales interactions will take place online by 2025. There's tons of studies along those lines. Now, does that mean the salesperson is going to go away? Absolutely not. What it means is that people are going to be looking online for answers to their questions. And that's where that digital twin comes in. You need to be there at those touch points where they're searching online. And so, this is it's a marathon. It is not, in the days of old, it was easy to run an ad in a trade pub, put an ad out in the yellow pages, and call it a day. This is an ongoing effort, to keep in front of people, to keep building content, and you just need to start. We started with a client a few weeks ago. He's realistic about it. We trained him on how to get on LinkedIn, start making comments, getting out there. And then, we just redid his website, his homepage. We didn't redo the website. We just changed the messaging, just did some very ground level, foundational things. And he said his leads have gone from 2 a month to 2 a week. I mean, that alone, just getting your presence and getting yourself out there, it can do a lot of things that you're leaving money on the table unless you get out there. So just start taking steps in that direction. And I think you're going to see benefits.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great way to sum things up, because often when we look at a challenge like this, especially if we're not already engaged in, actively posting or creating, it can seem, to your point, daunting. But
yeah,
when you get out there and you just start, I always tell people, posted is better than perfect, and you're going to learn as you go. And with your help and your company's help, they'll be able to make a significant difference. So,
and have a sense of humor about it. I mean, you're on social media, you're doing a podcast interview. Suddenly the sun goes down on you. It looks like you're in the witness protection program. That's
nobody said, we just dialed you down a little bit, Greg. But Greg, if people want to find out more about you and Winbound, where is the best place for them to go check you out?
It's winbound.com, WINBOUND, not wind as like wind, but like win more customers. Winbound.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. Love to have you connect with me. Be part of the manufacturing online community that David is a part of. Folks like Kurt Anderson, Sam Gupta, Joe Sullivan, Allison DeFord. These are great people that publish amazing content. Ray Zaganto, I go on and on, Dan Bigger. Get on there and just join in with the conversation. It's fun. You get to meet amazing people. So connect with me there too.
Yeah, that's what I love about manufacturing. It's the people, everybody's down to earth and super approachable, and, a very welcome community. So, and I'll make sure to put all your contact info in the show notes for everybody to make it easier for them to find you. So, Greg, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Thanks so much.
Well, and again, to your listeners, please hire us so I can buy a lamp for my next podcast interview.
I love it. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, take care.
Thank you so much for listening today. If we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media by searching @The Chrysler Club. Until next week, I'm your host, Dave Chrysler.